Lutez. I am the manager of the hemispheric program for agricultural health, safety, and agri-food quality. I have the honor of being here with our General Director General, Mr. Manuel Otero, and members of the AHFS program joining us here in person and virtually. Today is a very special day. We are going to celebrate progress, innovation, and cooperation because we are going to look at the latest updates of our DV tool for performance, evaluation, and vision, which ICA has developed to help strengthen the agri-food quality and safety and phytosanitary protection systems in all these countries. And for the first time, we will be sharing a new tool, a new DV tool, based on the One Health approach. This is a new stage in our work, an integrated vision that brings together human, animal, and plant health with environmental health, acknowledging that everything is connected. Today, we take a step towards a future where cooperation, science, and innovation are at the service of a common goal to have a healthier, sustainable, and safer hemisphere for all. And now I give the floor to our Director General, Mr. Manuel Otero, for his opening words. Thank you, Jose, and welcome everyone. Good morning. I'd like to greet our more than 100 participants in the webinar and all the AHFA's team. I wanted to start by highlighting with something that I tend to use when I start my contributions, which is always to remind us all that we are the most important exporting region of the world. If we consider the Americas, 1 of every 3 tons comes from our region. So this means we are leaders, and therefore we have a special responsibility because we have to provide abundant food that is affordable, uh, nutritious, that has good quality, and is produced uh, respecting the environment. So a series of features that means that our agri-food systems have to transform themselves constantly. And when it comes to trade, it's the first factor that is interested in food safety. And food safety protocols are essential. So we have to keep looking at food safety, nutrition, and quality of food with that One Health approach. At the same time, ICA is an institution that provides services which have to also be quality. We have to measure the satisfaction of our customers because what we've just mentioned, the challenges we have of producing more with less, of being leaders in trade, it means that our institutions have to be strong um, and even reinvent themselves permanently, precisely thinking about the society to which they are providing the food in the safest way possible. My track record at ICA covers more than 30 years, so I can say that I saw this PVS tool born from the very beginning. This tool has had great impact in all agri-food systems and animal and food health systems. But again, it has to adjust to the time. So I'm very glad to participate in today's webinar because we are providing an international common good that has the highest quality every time. It's not enough to be satisfied ourselves if our services or the rest of the services do not adopt it as their own. And at ICA, we always say that countries are the owners and the ones that mandate what ICA should do. So today is a very special time. We will see how this tool is being updated, optimized, streamlined, with some contributions of artificial intelligence and expanding the knowledge field, uh, which will be presented in the context of One Health. So, as Director General of EEC, I'm very happy. I am proud of the team, and I trust that our counterparts will be asking for more information to be able to implement the tool. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will be uh, closely following the evolution of this webinar, which is so important. And with that, I give the floor back to Jose. Thank you, Manuel. And now, continuing, it's an honor for me to introduce our next speaker, who will be giving us a lecture, who is Jaime Flores. Jaime worked with us. I had the opportunity in the past of working with Jaime. He is now in the private sector, and he'll bring his particular perspective regarding the evolution of PVS with a renewed vision of the modernization of animal health and food safety. Jaime, you have the floor.
Estimado José, muchísimas
Thank
gracias
you,
por
Jose,
tus gentiles palabras, señor
for
director
your kind
Manuel,
words.
un gusto. La mesa directiva
Director
les manda
General
un cordial
Manuel, it's a pleasure. Everyone over
saludo
there, I
cariñoso.
send my warmest
Yo
greetings.
sigo siendo el ICA
I'm still part of ICA
y
at
así me
heart,
siento. Mi
so and that's
corazón
how I
está
feel.
con el
Um,
ICA y con todos
my heart
ustedes.
is
Y
with
por
ICA and all of
supuesto,
you.
quiero
And of course,
agradecer
I
la
would also
oportunidad
like to thank you for the
de poder
opportunity
compartir algo de
of
lo que
being
ya
able to
mencionó
share
José, algo de lo que ya
something
mencionó el director general.
related to what we've already heard
Estas
mentioned by our
realidades que
by
tenemos
your
en nuestra
DG
región
about
y los
the different
desafíos que
realities
tenemos los
and
países
challenges in
para
our region,
modernizar,
and
para
the things we have to
fortalecer
do to
los sistemas de
modernize
sanidad
and
agropecuaria
strengthen
y
animal health and food
controles de
safety
calidad de nuestros
systems
alimentos
and
en
quality
nuestros países.
control
Dicho eso,
of
pues si me
our
permiten,
food.
voy a subir
With
la
that, I
presentación.
will share my screen.
Por favor, me avisan si se ve.
Just let me know when you can see it, please.
Aún no, Jaime.
We don't see it yet. No.
Ahora.
Okay, there it is.
Muy bien. Voy a poner en modo presentación.
Okay, I'll put it in presentation view.
¿Se ve en modo presentación?
Can you see it? Yes. It seems that it has some delay, but it is visible now. Thank you. Okay, so as Jose was mentioning, we want to give you a brief overview of the renewed vision to modernize animal health and food safety systems. And I'd like to begin by echoing the words of our DG regarding challenges and how globalization and improved communication mechanisms, as well as being able to place the products of a region anywhere in the world and receive in our markets products from other regions and other countries, has also meant risks for our food systems if we don't look at the borders and do our risk assessments that can really help us make the best decisions with a preventive view. We should also not forget to mention climate change and the latest events that we've been witness to. Jose also stated what happened with the world after the pandemic. And so, of course, that means that the countries and policies and institutions of each country, especially those in charge of sanitary and phytosanitary control to ensure quality of food, they have to take a different approach. And the One Health approach with an integrated, holistic view is definitely
moderno que
a
pueda
modern
nosotros
approach that should
visualizarlo y en los países
also be
tomarlo en cuenta para
incorporated
ese
into the different
proceso de
countries
innovación
to
institucional.
ensure we
Hago las
innovate
palabras
our
del director Manuel
institutions.
Otero, renovarse,
As our Director
hacer
General
innovaciones
Manuel Otero said, to
institucionales
renew
permanentes
themselves,
en el
to
tiempo. La
permanently
sanidad agropecuaria
improve
de
over time,
nosotros
to
en México
adjust,
no
because
es estática.
animal health and food
Los
safety
riesgos
is
están
not
presentes
static.
todo el
Risks
tiempo.
are
Y eso
ever present.
implica que
And
nosotros
that
tenemos el
means
gran
that
desafío
we
de
have the big
modernizar y poner
challenge
a punto
of
nuestras instituciones
modernizing
para
and
poder
preparing our
atender esos
institutions
posibles
to
riesgos,
ensure we
escalar esos
can
posibles riesgos,
um,
minimizar esos
manage,
posibles riesgos
mitigate
y
these
generar
potential risks,
confianza en las
and especially
contrapartes
to
interesadas.
create trust with
Y para
our
esto necesitamos
stakeholders and counterparts.
establecer estrategias
And for that,
en las
we need to
evaluaciones de
have
desempeño
strategies
y luego emitir a
to
los organismos internacionales
evaluate our
nuestras normas,
performance. And
ver
in the
cómo es
case of
estable,
international
al igual
organizations and
que la
NGOs,
colaboración entre países,
how to not just
cooperación,
ensure
trabajo
collaboration among
articulado, quieren
countries,
decir,
but just really
específicamente para
collaborative
que nosotros
work, working
podamos
as networks,
generar
so that we
sistemas
can
agroalimentarios que
ensure
puedan
our
ser
agri-food
resilientes.
systems are
Dicho
resilient.
esto, es
With
obvio,
that,
pues que la sanidad agropecuaria, y lo
it's
cité hace un
clear
momento,
that
tiene una
animal health and food
relación para
safety
el
have
acceso y
a
la
great
disponibilidad
relevance
de
in
una
terms of
población de
access
alimentos
and
que sean
availability
sanos,
of
que sean
food
seguros,
that is
que sean
safe,
inocuos.
that is
Oigan,
healthy.
no podemos entonces nosotros
And so
dejar a un lado la
we
relevancia que
must
tiene
remember
la
how
SAIA, la Sanidad
important
Agropecuaria y Inocuidad de los Alimentos,
AHFS
para
is
proteger la salud pública en
to
primera instancia,
protect, first of all,
después
public
para
health,
proteger
but then
el estatus
also to
sanitario o
protect the
fortalecer o mantener
sanitary
nuestro
or
estatus sanitario y
phytosanitary
salubrizarlo
status,
de nuestros
to
países.
protect and
Vemos la
sustain
vulnerabilidad
it in
que
our
podemos ver
countries.
en algunos
We
países
understand we can be very vulnerable. Some of the countries in our region,
desde el
if a
punto de vista
pest or a
fitosanitario,
disease enters the system.
también desde el punto de vista de salud animal, pues
Also,
no
in
sería
terms
desde
of
un lugar
animal
maravilloso.
health and
Hoy
food
por hoy,
safety.
ustedes saben, yo soy ecuatoriano y
As you know, I
tenemos
am from Ecuador,
desafortunadamente
and
los primeros
we have
problemas de
detected
fusarium
the
raza
first
4 en El
fusarium
Ecuador, que por supuesto
R4
pone
cases in
en un
Ecuador. And of
desafío
course,
enorme al país
that
en el
poses an
coordinamiento
enormous
para
challenge
tratar
to
de
the
prevenir,
country
ya no
and its
prevenir, controlar,
phytosanitary authorities to
contener
try and
lo que
no longer
puede ser
prevent, but now contain and control
este problema que
this
podría acabar con la abundancia
disease that
en el
could
país.
wipe
Pero
out all
hablando de
banana in the
comercio,
region.
yo
But
considero
talking
sin
about
duda
trade, that
que
also
tener
means
una
that having
institucionalidad fuerte
institutions that are strong,
que genera confianza
that
nos da
can
resultados.
create trust, opens
Definitivamente, yo
markets to us.
destaco, por ejemplo,
I
el rol de muchos de nuestros
have to
países,
highlight the
por
role many
ejemplo,
of our
de Chile,
countries
que tiene
have,
más
such
de
as
70
Chile,
acuerdos
with
comerciales.
over
Y
70
obviamente
free
debe
trade
tener
agreements or
a la
trade agreements.
fortaleza
And
institucional
this
que
is,
se
of
atribuye a
course,
sanidad
because
agropecuaria
they
y la
have
capacidad
the
que tiene sus
uh,
sistemas para
robust,
poder
solid
controlar la
AHFS
calidad y
system
la
that
inocuidad de
allows
los
them to
alimentos.
control
Pero también
quality
hablamos de
and safety of
prevención
food.
de
But
pérdidas
we're also
millonarias
talking about
cuando entran estas
preventing
enfermedades
economic
exóticas a
losses,
nuestro
because
país.
this could
Estas
mean
pérdidas pueden
if a
ser, por
pest comes in,
supuesto,
it
con
could be
impactos no
millions
solo
of
desde el
dollars
punto de vista
lost,
económico,
with impacts not
sino
just on
y
the
sin
economic
duda desde el
side,
punto de
but
vista social.
also the social side.
Aumentar la confianza entre las partes interesadas
Increasing
sería
trust among
fundamental. Y no solo
stakeholders is
son
also
los socios
fundamental,
comerciales,
not
solo son los
just
países a los que
commercial
nosotros
partners,
podemos
not just the
vender nuestros
countries that we
productos.
can
Hablamos
sell
también
our
de la
products to.
confianza
It's
dentro de
also
nuestros
related to
países.
trust
Hablamos de
inside
la
our own
confianza que
countries,
debemos
within
nosotros dar
them,
a los
and the trust
consumidores.
we have
Y por
provide
ejemplo,
to our
desde el
consumers.
punto de vista de la responsabilidad
In terms
de una
of how
institución,
responsible
de
we
un
should be
país en ofrecer alimentos
in
sanos,
offering
humanos y seguros.
food that is safe and
Y no
healthy.
podríamos nosotros tampoco olvidar
And we
y
should not
dejar de
forget
mencionar el impacto que
the
tiene esto en el
impact
desarrollo de los
this all
territorios,
has in
en el desarrollo
developing
rural,
our territories,
en el
in
apoyo
rural
que puede
development,
significar a pequeños productores,
in the
la
support this
modernización
entails for
precisamente de
our
esta
farmers and
institucionalidad
producers.
no solo
Modernizing institutions is not just a matter of providing technology, but also training, uh, strengthening our outreach services that have debilitated in our countries, and to improve access of smallholder farmers to services that could help them better integrate into value chains that are more formal and to boost rural development in an inclusive manner. And so, what is going on in the Americas, in our countries, regarding institutions and AHFS systems? We have a very different situation from one country to the next. It's all heterogeneous. Some countries, as I've mentioned, um, have strong systems that create trust where their policies on AHFS have clear goals and objectives. They have indicators, targets to assess them over time. However, some countries are still limited with serious limitations in terms of infrastructure, for example. Some countries have regulations and legislation that is outdated. We can look at some of the regions of the Americas and legislation, standards, regulations in these countries might be 40, 50 years old. So we have to understand how important it is to update and harmonize, standardize the regulations in our countries um, in line with international reference organizations. This means that this disparity in the Americas, the differences among regions, Central America, Caribbean, Andean region, South, this disparity, these differences can lead to vulnerabilities that could affect competitiveness from the regional standpoint. And this is important to remember because some countries do have advanced and recognized systems that build trust worldwide. Those with infrastructure problems that don't have enough technical or financial resources or that are weakened in that sense, we should understand the opportunity we have of establishing a strategy to modernize and strengthen them. Now, what are the main challenges? Understanding that these can all be structural in our region. Many services, as we've seen myself, I've been able to evaluate AHFS systems in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic. Um, I was also in Central America and in the Andean region. Many of these services that require strengthening do not have enough of a budget. Um, it's amazing to see the realities, the budgets of different countries and ministries, sometimes uh, really providing very little to all public institutions with a short-term view for AHFS systems. And that is a big mistake. It's a mistake because we should be able to strengthen them. We want to strengthen institutions to ensure they can face these challenges and realities. There's something else which in my experience I've been able to find and becomes a common denominator, which is not enough technical staff. And it's not just a matter of the number of officials in the different institutions, but also the quality of the officers working in AHFS.
que no hemos aprendido en
We
muchos
have
de
to
nuestros
add to
países, no en
that
todos, a trabajar en
that
equipo.
many
La
countries, not all,
descoordinación no
do not
solamente
work
es
as teams. There's a lack of
interinstitucional, sino
coordination
que
among
vemos
the different
descoordinaciones a
institutions,
veces
but there's also
interinstitucionales.
uh,
Hay muchos
interinstitutional
países que no hablan, por ejemplo,
aspects. Many
los
countries
servicios de vigilancia
have
epidemiológica de
the
EPAs con
epidemiological
los
um,
servicios de
surveillance
inspección.
departments don't talk to
Eso por
inspection
poner un
services.
ejemplo que la
Just to give an
realidad muchas
example,
veces en nuestros países es compleja
in our
términos de
countries, many
entender
times
la
the reality
relevancia de
is
trabajar
quite
en un sistema
complex.
articulado, coordinado, donde el
Working
flujo de
in
información
a coordinated manner where
fluidamente.
information flows both
Hay
ways is not something
aspectos
you find
importantes
everywhere.
también desde
There's
el punto de
other
vista de la
aspects
participación privada.
in terms of
No hemos
private
entendido
sector
todavía en muchos de los
participation.
países y los
In
servicios
many of the
el rol
countries and HFS
estratégico que
services,
puede jugar
we
el
have not
sector
understood the
privado
strategic
en
role of the private
el
sector
aporte de recursos y la
in
construcción de políticas
providing
públicas y
resources,
políticas
public
sectoriales en
policies,
relación a la sanidad
sectoral
agropecuaria y la seguridad de los
policies
alimentos.
regarding
Muchos
AHFS.
países
Many
reciben
countries
recursos para fortalecer sus
receive
programas de vigilancia y
resources to
inspección.
strengthen
Esto no quiere
their
decir que se está
programs,
comprometiendo bajo
but that
ningún
does not
concepto
mean
la
there's a true
integridad
commitment in
del
terms
sistema
of
y del
uh, a,
organismo de control.
a
Puede dejar
holistic
eso para un lado,
system. We
cambiar y
have
romper
to
paradigmas
change,
de la relevancia que
break
tiene el
paradigms,
sector
and
privado en la
understand how
seguridad
important the
agropecuaria
private
y el
sector
cuidado de los
is
alimentos.
for AHFS as
Habíamos
well.
hablado, habíamos mencionado,
We
obviamente, del
have
tema
mentioned
de las normativas que
the
son
fact that
muchas
much
veces
legislation
datan
and
de
regulations
20,
tend
30,
to
hasta
be
50 años atrás,
20, 30, or 50 years
en algunos
old
países y algunas islas del
in
Caribe.
some countries of the Caribbean, for example.
Todos sabemos, pero siempre es importante
We all
recalcar
know, but it's always
los
important to
impactos que
highlight
tiene
the
no tener
impacts
sistemas
of
confiables
not having a
desde
reliable
el punto de
system
vista de la salud pública.
from the
La
standpoint
Organización
of
Mundial de
public
la
health.
Salud, la OPS
The
específicamente,
World Health
establece que
Organization
77 millones
and
de casos de
PAHO
ETAs ocurren al
have
año en
established
América Latina
that
y el
we
Caribe.
have 77 million cases of
Los estudios de carga-impacto que se han llevado a
ETA
cabo en
happening
muchos
in the
países
Caribbean and the world.
demuestran que el
We
costo
know that the
de las
cost
diferentes enfermedades
of the
podría
different
llegar a costar
diseases
millones y
is
millones de dólares a los países
millions of
por una
dollars
enfermedad,
for
por
the
un agente causante.
countries just by
Muchas veces
one
nosotros
disease,
analizamos
one
la
agent.
totalidad de ETAs que ocurren en nuestros
And
países,
even more so if we look at
pero
all the
nuestro
cases
parámetro
that
director
happen in
de
our
restricciones
um,
comerciales por no
region.
cumplir aquellos
And
requisitos o medidas sanitarias,
commercial
tanto socios
restrictions
comerciales
that come
que
because
sean
we may not be abiding
estén
by the
disponiendo o
protocols and
están
requirements
estableciendo de acuerdo
are
a lo que
something that
son
really
sus niveles adecuados de protección.
can affect adequate levels of
Y esto
protection.
significa pérdidas
And
económicas y
that
reputacionales.
means
Simplemente para ilustrar
significant
cómo nos puede
economic
afectar esto,
losses. Just
en un
to show
reporte
how
del
this
RAF
could impact us.
de este año,
In a
del
RASP
anterior, perdón, del
report from
2024, podemos
2024,
ver claramente lo que pasa
we
con
can
ciertas
see
frutas,
what happens
hortalizas y
with
carnes
certain
y
fruits,
cuáles son los
vegetables, and meat
motivos de
products
rechazo.
and the
Residuos de
reasons for this
pesticidas por encima
rejection.
de los LMRs
Pesticide residue
presencia
over the limits,
¿cómo se llama?, de agentes químicos
presence
por
of chemical
encima de
agents
los
above
LMRs,
MRLs,
toxinas en ciertos productos,
mycotoxins in
patógenos como
certain
virus,
products,
salmonela,
pathogens
entre
such as
otras
virus,
cosas. El
salmonella.
impacto es enorme.
So
En el
it's a
2024,
enormous
de acuerdo al último
impact. And in
reporte del RAF,
2024, according to the
tenemos que
latest
para
RASP
América
report,
Latina y el
in Latin
Caribe,
America and the
pues
Caribbean,
se presentaron
there
casos
were
graves, complejos,
serious, complex
fallecieron de
cases
frutas y hortalizas
for
y
fruits
también
and
víctimas de carnes y
vegetables
productos cárnicos y
and
también
meat
productos pesqueros y
products
mariscos.
and fish
Pero,
products as well.
¿qué es lo importante? ¿A dónde queremos
Importantly,
llegar con este mensaje
where do we
que
want
queremos
to,
nosotros
where do we want this message
compartir en
to
esta
arrive?
presentación?
Um,
La necesidad de
the
trabajar en
need
políticas de
to
Estado,
work on
la necesidad
state
de trabajar en
policies, to
políticas
work on
que nos fortalezcan
policies
la seguridad
that
agropecuaria
really
y la inocuidad
strengthen
de los alimentos.
our AHFS
Políticas que deben
systems.
tener un
policies that need to be science-based with the technical foundations, um, also based on correct risk assessments. This means that we have to have a strong institutional framework. The One Health approach, combining the environmental side, phytosanitary protection, animal health, and food safety, is the best approach. It is how we should work currently to ensure that we bring together all the sectors, including the environment. This might sound repetitive. What should we do? Well, we've all heard that um, internationally, if we follow the WTO agreement, the NCF and the technical barriers to trade agreements, we have to harmonize, standardize, and update our systems to the Codex recommendations, uh, prior OIE and CIPF. Um, this means that we have to understand the importance of multi-sectoral integration. And this means that we have to incorporate health, agriculture, trade, the environment, governments, local governments in our countries, and that means we work not just on institutional innovation, having strong institutions with systems and programs and a capacity for diagnosis that all build trust. We must understand how relevant technological innovation is, how relevant digitalization is. We cannot, under any circumstance, think about institutional modernization if we do not understand that it also requires technology. In today, artificial intelligence can predict complex situations such as disease outbreaks. Big data can optimize decisions by analyzing the information we produce, specifically in disease-related aspects. Digital platforms available now in the market allow us to get to know the whole story of a product, traceability. Um, Platforms that use blockchain to collect and store key information on the process, on the whole production process from the primary aspects up until it reaches a consumer. And we also have to talk about modernization with technology. We cannot think about it without technology. A rapid diagnosis with sensors. We were doing some interesting work with ICA Colombia and the World Bank. And there's a need to modernize scanners in the border control and checkpoints. That's just one example of how relevant technological information and digitalization is to these modernization processes. Fundamentally, the success towards a future by incorporating technological innovation and digitalization relies on the interoperability of national systems. This will be key for the future. We had the opportunity in some cases of finding that some countries to modernize their risk assessment systems and facilitate trade, one of the barriers was the operation systems for all their control bodies. They do not speak to each other. That is what we want with interoperability.
Traceability and monitoring systems. They are definitely key to respond to crisis. It is not an option anymore. The countries need to work on national systems that let us to trace products, to track products. The most demanding markets need to know the source of each food, the conditions they were produced, how they were transported, how they are marketed. So we need definitely systems that give us guarantee, assurance, confidence, and of course, we are talking about transparency. There are successful cases, million of them. I just want to mention some of them here. For example, the case of Chile with the livestock agricultural service and health certification. I remember they have 30 trade agreements. Brazil with digital traceability, the increase for exports, for made exports. Mexico, eradication of quarantine pests, and that reinforced the agricultural expansion and the public and private partnerships in the case of Costa Rica, for example, strengthening their capacity. But what is it that we require? Regional cooperation and networking. We need to understand, for example, the pertinence of cooperation. Cooperation is vital. No country is capable to face global challenges in isolation. We need to understand that the problem in the border, my border problem turns into my neighbor problem as well. We need to try to work on an articulated manner using regional networks where we can exchange sanitary warnings. For example, we can work in the harmonization of standards, strengthening the technical capacities we may find in our services. And what definitely will improve is their response, the coordinated response to emergencies. And of course, trade facilitation. We have mentioned the role of the private sector, which is vital. Key partner in implementing standards. It is vital that different institutional stakeholders get involved, public, private, and the academia. Investing in innovation and training is vital because it marks a point of inflection where private sector invest and contribute. The private sector is not a secondary stakeholder. We need to understand that the private sector turns into a key actor, key stakeholder. He is a protagonist. The adoption of quality standards and the participation and formulation of public policies becomes an essential role to build safety and sanitary systems in the countries, robust and sustainable, of course. I do not see in any case where a country can work in isolation only from the private sector to comply with the challenges and goals we are stating. And the basis of what we discussed about public policies, we need to update the legal framework with this technical and scientific basis to really define the roles and responsibilities. In many countries, the control is fragmented, so we have unique agencies. We have food control systems, to give you one example, that require institutional coordination. But from where The, from where does this start? From a legal framework, roles and responsibilities, something we tend to forget. Policy should not be a statement in paper only. They need to be supported by a budget that let us this institutional innovation and strengthening, and that this can be a sustainable standard. So this is vital, and it is necessary to include the private sector. What do we need to do to measure the performance of our services? Later on, other colleagues, we're going to talk about the new tool, the innovation of this tool developed some years ago, and that for sure helped to update many services in America. We need to prioritize actions. We need to understand that there is an investment in infrastructure and technology, and something vital for me. We must systematically, in time, to evaluate, monitor the system, to establish KPIs and make the necessary adjustments. For time reasons, this is just one example on how Ireland, I love the system, how they have an unarticulated system and they were able to concentrate, coordinated and articulated system. What are the expected benefits? Risk reduction, broad access to market, large access to market, more productivity, public health, to keep the sanitary status. And with this, I conclude with my conclusions, key conclusions. A modern AHFS give us resilient agri-food systems. Public-private cooperation is key. It has to exist. Technology transforms sanitary management. We cannot talk about updating without including technology and digital innovation. And digital innovations, it is not bureaucracy. To invest today, investing today ensures the future. Thank you. I took a couple of more minutes. My apologies. Thank you, Jaime. We're going to have a section for comments and questions later on. Before moving on to the next section that we're going to present in more detail how its tool has been updated, I would like to give you some background and where we are and from where we come from. We started with an update commitment to update the DVS 2 years ago. And through the leadership of the General Director, Naika Mayorotero, and the institutional support provided, we obtained the necessary resources and we commit them to start this new transformation. And not only was related to content at the technical level, we were one step ahead to create an app, a mobile app of DVE, to have more accessibility to the different audiences. And with this, I can tell you that a couple of weeks ago, we had the experience of applying DVE in Panama through the mobile app, and I have heard that was quite successful. I understand that later on we're going to have more comments in relation to this. So how do we see ourselves in the future? As Jaime commented, this DVE tool is going to be more and more integrated, more adapted to the global challenges. And we're not only going to work, but we will align the idea and the content to international cooperation, promoting, updating with the regulatory framework, global and international ones. I'm referring to CIPF, Codex Alimentarius, WOHA, and WTO. This is not just to characterize capacities and institutions, but this is going to be a strategic tool for planning purposes, decision-making purposes, and creation of more complete, resilient, transparent, and sustainable services. I conclude my intervention with this, but I want to thank you to the cooperation we have received with many organizations allied in the transformation and updating of the DVE, particularly the PAHO has been a key partner in the technical and methodological strengthening of the food safety tool. With this, now I'm going to give the floor to our first speaker for today, Alejandra Diaz, technical expert of AHFS program. She will give us more details about the updating of the DVE tool for the national systems of food safety. Go ahead, Alejandra, floor is yours. Thank you, Jose. Greetings to the director and my colleagues in the room and in the table, and the head table, and special greetings to the participants. Okay. I am very happy to present this, to introduce this DV for national systems of food safety. The starting point, as we are understanding, uh, is for us food systems. Let me see, how can I move on my slides? Just hold on. The starting point are food systems. This is just an outline that tries to show the different phases on a chain. However, not everything is great because there is a series of stakeholders and activities that take place at the level of these food systems. And there are important stakeholders. These stakeholders include producers, vendors, carriers, processors, manufacturers, distributors, and not only the level of an external market, but also in the traditional markets. There's farmer fairs, and we have consumers as well. This is just a graphic, but the idea is to show you that there are a series of stakeholders participating in these food systems. In each one of these phases, we are in some cases working with regulations whose aim is to look for safety, food safety. We're not going to go to a consumer if we have not ensured to have risk management in order to find the ideal phase. So what we do is to have food safety, and there is something very important. Without food, there's no health. Without food, without safe food, there's no health. This to highlight, and particularly understanding that we cannot skip any of these phases in relation to risk management. Each one of these points, we call them best practices, but they are risk mitigation programs. In each one of them, we're trying to find control of the different dangers or hazards to ensure the safety. Okay, let's go back to our food system. Here, we said that the set of procedures and standards in some cases are mandatory, and this is part of the regulation. But along with this regulation, we have the corresponding authorities. In each one of these phases or set of phases, there are competent authorities. We do not have one single organization taking care of safety. We have the Ministries of Agriculture taking care of the aspect of primary production. In other words, in other places, you will see animal origin products, but in other, it will be the Ministry of Health that deal with the finished products. And these same authorities are not necessarily going to be the one that will rule the traditional markets or supermarkets. So we will find municipalities, local governments, a series of institutions that need to be taken into account. And this is part of one of the challenges of the updating of this DVE, because we need to find for sure the interaction and this coordinator work between all this institutionality, architecture at the level of the regulations. But the regulation is not enough because we cannot overrule the sectors. We have some guidance. We will have some technical standards. Technical standards that are not necessarily working at the level of competent authorities. There's another institutionality. We have the quality institutes at the country level. But likewise, our authorities need to use some processes. I'm going to mention just some of them. A process of supervision or surveillance, processes to use essays, and metrology enters here in the game as well. But if we want this essays certification, these processes mark reliability and give us accurate data, and not only ensure the confidence of an internal consultant, but an external as well. We need to go to accreditation, and both accreditation and regularization of many other elements, as the case of essays, include other actors, other institutionality. We call the AHFS program, which is a program of agricultural health and food safety. So this set is called quality infrastructure. So our competent authorities have the important need to work with this infrastructure of quality. They need to understand that there is an important technical step, which is infrastructure, quality infrastructure, that is going to be much more coherent and stronger than the decision making our competent authorities will take in relation to food safety. Something else, all this is not only based in national elements. Particularly, there are guidelines, international agreements and guidelines at the level of WTO. For example, we cannot limit in the topic of safety for sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So we need to work with the technical barriers to trade. We need to work with the agreement of trade facilitation. Why? Because they are elements related to procedures, even to understand that there are international standards that, even if they are not mandatory, mark the step to the way to go in order to optimize safety. With ISO, particularly these regulations are based in the Codex Alimentarius, but there are also elements issued from the treatment of diseases that may impact safety. So we need to see to work with WOHA. That's why the importance of One Health approach. One Health approach means that an action that I can take at the level of primary production, for example, like the campaigns for the screwworm in Central America and Mexico, we need to understand that some of these products, if they are not done appropriately, may have residuality, may generate resistance. So it invites us to strengthen our surveillance program of residues and contaminants. But if we work with accreditation, we need to understand the international framework, as is the case of the organization related to accreditation. And this is the food safety system. It is not the old version or concept that to be limited to one regulation and our competent authorities developed by competencies. No, it is an important architecture, understanding, as we said at the beginning, that makes our agri-food systems fulfill this purpose of food safety, nutrition. And I lost her. I cannot hear her anymore. I'm sorry. Something.
En el deber de inocuidad de alimentos, y aquí es importante hacer la mención de que este debe es una creación conjunta de la OPS y nuestro equipo del ICA. Entonces, desde una versión que teníamos en el 2012, hemos pasado a entender todo ese sistema, como les mencionamos nosotros, de manera que ahora nos estamos centrando en caracterizar y analizar la capacidad institucional y operativa de cada servicio de este sistema de inocuidad de alimentos, pero no solamente de manera individual, sino también el valor estará el trabajarlo en conjunto sobre la base de 4 componentes fundamentales. Hemos analizado cada una de sus competencias críticas
on the basis of vital aspects. And I lost her again.
Elementos muy importantes. Pero particularmente no termina la tarea solamente en caracterizarla. No es solamente irnos a un laboratorio y medirnos, sacarnos el análisis de la sangre y nos sale más colesterol o la glucosa. No. ¿Qué hacemos si nos quedamos solo en eso? La tarea más importante es construir esa visión común con las partes interesadas. Ahora no hablamos solo del sector privado. Ahora hablamos que hay consumidores. En algunos casos hay organizaciones.
There are consumers. In some cases, there are organizations. In this case, there may be academic entities, research entities, and we need to work with all these stakeholders. It is an important opportunity to establish priorities, to facilitate this strategic planning, but not only at the national level, but also at the regional level. We had the opportunity to work with the Indian community and the project of the European Union last year, applying DVE for residues and contaminants that particularly affected European Union. So we found, for example, an interesting comparison between the potentialities and the opportunities and the common gaps between countries of the Indian community. What for? For projects, for regional projects, and understanding that and an understanding that we can achieve in a much better manner. So let's move to the DVE. This DVE, as I mentioned, has 4 components. These 4 components are related to the technical capacity. It means that we cannot think on an entity and food safety service that do not have appropriate labs. If they don't have them, those that establish relations of authorization with the authorities in the country. If it is not with the country, with the region. If it is not with the region, at the international level. But we need to be sure that the data are reliable, accurate, and indicate what is being done really. This is a risk analysis aspect, technical innovation, and in the surveillance processes, we find something interesting. And it is how we promote reducing informality. We found food systems where only 30% is surveilled or inspected. And we work hard, but to those who are registered, when there is an industry or an informal sector, so important that we are losing it from sight. It is not just about sanctioning them, but it is about promoting them through a graduality without reducing the food safety standard, but with mechanisms of inclusion for the sector. Another element is in capturing more resilience. This is to be done by people that need to be work towards professionalization, that they have access to scientific magazines, access to scientific information. Otherwise, their decisions are not going to be based on scientific evidence, but there is also the fact of having the capacity to grow. So we're just trying to have plans and annual budgets and plans, but we need to be sure that there is budget to grow. This is very important, besides taking care of emergency aspects. So we have this interaction with the stakeholders. It is important in the updating and innovation process, because besides the private sector, producer sector, in the different phases, we need to recognize the academic entities we would like to work with in order to have joint programs. We have consumers, so we need to hear their voices. We need to have joint programs. If I do not have these three elements, I cannot have the fourth one, which is public access and market access protection. So the problem is in remaining these markets and as well as keeping the status without having a double standard. We may have surveillance process and inspection processes concentrated for exporting products. However, the products each one of us consume, even the authorities are bought into supermarkets. So we need to consider all this as a whole. All these components have critical competencies. This is just one example. These critical competencies were analyzed, revised by the ICA team, and after that they were validated. This is one example. If we had to analyze funding to an investment in services, we have a series of elements. So we may find in this level 3, for example, we may be in this level 3. But in this priority, in this planning, what can we do to move from 3 to 4? It is not only political will, it requires investment that may come from internal resources, but also through projects, through joint programs with the private sector. Okay, and to conclude, the results are worked, are analyzed, and we can have interesting comparative data. We may have them by sector or global. We may analyze all of them as a whole in conjunction, but remember, if we only stay in characterizing and we not move to the implementation phase, we are losing a lot. My appreciation to Ecuador, our representation, AICA, and the work conducted with Agrocalidad and the organizations that were present in the evaluation phase is quite appreciated. Thanks, Ecuador. Thanks to your generosity to put in the field this tool that is now going to be available for everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ale, for your presentation. Let's continue to the second presentation. Now we're going to have our expert of the southern region, Rodrigo Astete. He will present the updating of the DVE tool for NPPOs. Go ahead.
Perfecto. ¿Están viendo la pantalla?
Aún no. Se retrasa un poco.
Perfecto, hay un delay.
Listo.
Okay.
Ya.
Ok, partimos. Bueno, muchas gracias.
All right, thank you very much. I will now be presenting the updates of the PVS tool for national phytosanitary protection organizations. So to begin some context for the update and modernization of the tool, the latest update of the tool was in 2014, so it's about 11 years where it was not updated. Secondly, international standards through the convention, the International Convention on Phytosanitary Protection, the NIMPs in Spanish, have existed since 2014, but to date there have been 10 new standards adopted, besides all the update of standards that is done yearly. Another reason to update this was to have the One Health approach, as we've heard already. And the idea was to progress towards a more technological system with greater sustainability. In that sense, one of the goals of AHFS that we have as a line of action is related to the modernization of the phytosanitary services in each country. So basically modernizing these services in terms of their capacity and to be up to speed on market requirements and correctly protect human health and animal health under the One Health approach. What is the modernization of phytosanitary protection organizations? Well, obviously, we've seen there's already changes in production and production methods, as we heard from the DG. Obviously, the economy of the Americas, we are agro exporters. There's a response to these international standards, which, as I said, are updated every year, they're modified, and this modernization also responds to incorporating new trade and production technologies in each of the services and processes. Obviously, and as we heard before, one of the most common problems or challenges for phytosanitary protection organization is their lack of financing and the need to find new funding sources and mechanisms to have enough of a budget in their national organizations. The objective of this tool is to create a dialogue in the organization, including stakeholders outside of the organization, to, of course, be able to strengthen critical competences of phytosanitary services in their technical aspect, but also in their collaborative approaches and in their institutional work, and to define institutional priorities, as well as facilitating strategic planning, and to be able to have funding projects as part of the targets in the tool. So how did we work on these updating streams? This is work that we did together with different institutions, and the goal was to work on 4 aspects for this update. First, regarding the content. Second, the language, format, and the modality of application. In the content side, we worked on the role and function of the national organizations, and all the standards and updating included traceability, sustainability, and incorporating, when possible, all the concepts of One Health, and to progress in human talent indicators. For example, also ensuring the permanence of specialists in the institutions. And also transparency of the institution, accountability, and other related aspects under content. We also wanted to work on language to adapt the progress internationally through the IPPC, the new terminology, looking for consistency between different aspects to avoid ambiguity and to ensure the language was as clear as possible. We also wanted to have a format that was intuitive, user-friendly, that it would be easier to compile these characterizations that countries use in the PVS tool. And another stream for the update was the modality of application to ensure that we had a digital platform that combined work in person with workshops and others. So we worked on the update in those four areas. The role of phytosanitary services are to ensure and protect plant health through different aspects such as surveillance, uh, certification, the standards and regulations, international rules to strengthen capacities. Overall, these roles seek to ensure safe trade, protecting the environment, and sustainable development. These four areas of technical capacities, institutional development, regulatory interaction, and facilitation of trade is how we focus this update. The current tool that is being launched today has four components, which are related to the roles of the national organizations: technical capacity, institutional development, mainly within the organization, the capital, the human and financial capital, interaction and capacity to regulate, and of course, facilitating the movement of regulated articles or items. The four components are defined. I won't explain each of them, but then we have 25 critical competences based on these four components. From the strategic standpoint, we want to ensure that the PVS tool can become a parameter or a reference point to measure progress from one year to the next, to become a basis or a foundation for modernization projects that can be financed, for it to allow comparison among the region and different sectors, and undoubtedly to strengthen international cooperation by applying this tool from ICA. Innovation and next steps. This, of course, as Jose said, opens up great opportunities, great expectations for national organizations to be able to work with digital platforms and predictive analysis of pests in different countries, sustainability indicators and human capital to try and ensure that there's a better coordination with the private sector, which is so relevant today for each of the national phytosanitary protection organizations, and integration with international agendas such as biosecurity, One Health, and others that may arise so that we can adopt them as well. So the invitation and the thoughts to share here is that the updated PVS tool is modernized, and the 2025 tool, more than just a management tool, is a living instrument that includes the strategic vision for national phytosanitary protection organizations. We invite and encourage national organizations to use it actively so that we can ensure that we have modern phytosanitary services that are adaptable and resilient in every country. With that, thank you so much, and you have the floor back, Jose. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. So important to understand that each of the countries may see how useful these new tools will be. It will help characterize systems, and of course, we are fully available and ready to continue applying and helping the countries. I now give the floor to the next technical specialist of the HFS program, Horace Friaca, who will be talking about the new PVS tool under One Health. You have the floor, Horace.
Estás en mute.
You're muted, sorry.
Ahora.
Okay, now. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Perfecto. Buenas tardes a todos. Un gusto estar con
Good
vosotros.
afternoon, everyone. It's a
Gracias por la
pleasure to be
oportunidad de
here,
presentar este
and thank you for
trabajo.
the opportunity of
Estamos
presenting the
desarrollando
work we have been doing
el
on
desarrollo de una
the
nueva
development
herramienta
of a
PVS en
new
ICA en
PVS
este
tool
caso
at
para
ICA
evaluación de
to
capacidades y
assess
eficacia del abordaje en salud
capabilities
de los
of applying
sistemas
the
de
One Health
sanidad
approach
agropecuaria e inocuidad de
by
alimentos
the
de la
animal health
América.
and food safety systems of the Americas.
Bueno, la idea surgió de
The
una
idea came up
investigación y de la valoración de las
after the
características
assessment
positivas
of
y
the
de las
positive
potencialidades de las herramientas PVS en
characteristics
ICA,
of the PVS tools at
considerando el
ICA.
hecho de que son
First of
herramientas
all, these
accesibles,
are
de fácil
intuitive and
implementación,
easy
que
application
permiten la
tools
identificación de áreas
that
a
help
fortalecer en
identify
las actividades de la
areas
salud
that need
pública en los
strengthening
países.
in the AHFS systems of the
La
countries.
operación de las herramientas permite
Also, the application of these tools
armonización y el
allows
establecimiento
to
de una sola
standardize
visión, es decir,
and
las
have a
áreas que
single
sigan
vision, a common
identificadas
vision, so that
determinarán
AHFS
cómo alcanzar estos
services
objetivos.
can know where they want to be
Después,
at and how to
con
reach
base a
that
estos
goal.
resultados y a
And
las
based on
operaciones
the
de las
outcomes
herramientas
and on
PVE,
applying the PVS tools,
tenemos usualmente
we
subsidios
usually
para
have
la elaboración
subsidies
de
for
proyectos
project
con el objetivo
preparation
de
and
identificar
development
brechas
in order
identificadas,
to
con el
improve
objetivo de
identified gaps,
alcanzar el nivel que
always
los
with the
países
aim to
determinen que
achieve
quieren
the
alcanzar.
country's level
Y por
as
último, con
what they have
base
set for
en
themselves. And
estas
lastly,
potencialidades,
um,
en estos aspectos positivos,
looking at the positive
afortunadamente, la
aspects,
herramienta es ampliamente
the
utilizada en
tool
nuestra región,
is used
tanto por
widely
países,
in
por los
the
Estados miembros
region,
del ICA, como
both from
por
the part of
agencias
ICA member
financiadoras del
states, but
proyecto.
also by agencies that fund projects.
También, con base en esta
Based on
identificación y valoración de los
this
aspectos
assessment
positivos
and
y
identification of all the
potencialidades de las
positives
herramientas
and the
PVE en
potential
ICA,
of the PVS tools of
identificamos
ICA,
que
we
ICA es
determined that
la
ICA
única organización internacional
is the
que
only
realiza
international organization
evaluaciones de
that
múltiples componentes de
evaluates
sistemas de
multiple
salud
components of the
bajo
One
su
Health
propia
system
bandera.
under
Es
that
decir, reconocemos
flag
que
or
la Organización
area.
Mundial de Salud Animal,
So, acknowledging that
PVE,
the World
para la
Health
sanidad humana.
Organization has a
Actualmente
PVS for
nosotros tiene un
um,
tipo de
animal health,
evaluación
the Codex has
sobre competencias
an
en inocuidad
assessment
de
of
alimentos. La
competencies in
IPF, también
um,
la FAO,
food
tiene
safety.
su
The
herramienta de evaluación sobre
IPPC at
las
FAO
autoridades de
has its
protección fitosanitaria.
own
Sin
tool to
embargo,
assess
todas separadas y
phytosanitary
bajo
protection
una
authorities, but none
magnífica
of them
agencia
is
y
under
todas
a
con
single
características
agency,
muy
and they
diferentes.
all have very
El
different
ICA era el
features.
único y sigue el
So
único
ICA
que
is the only
realiza
one, and it
todas estas
remains the only one that
evaluaciones
does
de
all
estos
these
múltiples
evaluations
componentes
of the multiple
bajo una única
components
institución
under
bajo
a
una
single
herramienta
institution.
armonizada que tiene la
With
misma
a
característica
harmonized tool
horizontalmente en
with the
todas
same
partes.
horizontal
Por cuenta de
characteristics
eso,
overall.
nos consideramos muy bien
Because of
posicionados
that,
para
we feel we
evaluar
are very well positioned
este trabajo de
to
elaboración de
do
una
this
herramienta
work,
para la
preparing
evaluación
a
de
tool
capacidades
to
y eficacia
evaluate
del
the
abordaje en
capacity to
salud,
implement the One
servicios de
Health
sanidad agropecuaria y
approach
inocuidad de alimentos
in
en nuestra
the
región.
AHFS systems in the region.
Para realizar el trabajo, conformamos un equipo de trabajo con
To
las
do this,
siguientes
we created a
responsabilidades.
team with the following
Inicialmente, para la definición del
responsibilities.
escopo
First of
de los
all,
términos
to
de
define
referencia
the
y
scope, terms of
posteriormente para la
reference,
revisión final,
and finally,
trabajamos con el
the
siguiente
ending
grupo,
review
conformado por
with
los
a
especialistas del
group
programa SAIA de
mm,
ICA, Daniela
of
Pu,
the AHFS
yo mismo,
specialists of
Jaime
ICA,
Romero,
Daniela
Lucia
Pu,
Maya,
myself, Jaime
Sasha
Romero,
Tereles y
Lucia
Shana
Maya,
Brandon.
Sasha Tereles, and Shauna Brandon.
Para la
to prepare the guidelines from this working group, we received the support of a specialized consultancy provided by Dr. Wildo Araújo, who is a veterinary medicine doctor, PhD, and professor of epidemiology and public health at the University of Brasilia. And for the initial review, we had Dr. Araújo as well, the AHFS specialist Jaime Romero as a focal point for the One Health program, and myself also reviewing. And this has already been completed. So the general guidelines for the work were first to focus on agri-food systems and the competencies of the HFS services. So it's not an anthropocentric tool, and it is not directed to ministries of health. We hope to work directly with the animal health authorities, so veterinary services, phytosanitary protection services, and food safety authorities, especially those that relate most with ministries of agriculture. Secondly, to consider the existing PVS tools, mainly regarding their replicability, general structure, the functioning logic, and the potential to integrate each. So this gives continuity to what we mentioned before, the fact that we already had different tools to evaluate the different components of One Health system applied to agri-food systems. This group would have to integrate the different tools, maintaining the general structure, logic, and the positives. So ease of use, simplicity of the tool, so that it could improve or facilitate application in the countries. And lastly, focused on evaluating the coordination and integration capacities among the different agencies of the One Health system in every country. This approach has been analyzed. We've discussed it in the working group, but also in high-level events with experts on human health and others under the AHFS program. And the vision is that as regards One Health, no country is beginning from scratch. They all have done something already, and they all perform activities related to controlling aspects of public health. They all coordinate to a certain degree, more or less, among themselves. So to ensure high-level performance in the implementation of a One Health approach, the only thing that is missing is for countries to better coordinate and integrate their agencies' work even more, considering that each of them already work on the different components that comprise the One Health system. More on the guidelines, we consider that as for sanitary and food safety aspects, we should focus on preventing and controlling zoonosis and foodborne diseases. Also, very importantly, as for the interface between plant protection aspects and the environment, we have decided to prioritize those that are linked to pesticide control, chemical fertilizer control, and related environmental pollution. Usually, pests are not necessarily public health issues. So considering the approach is for public health aspects that are under the responsibility of phytosanitary protection services. And lastly, to consider the quadripartite alliance One Health guides and the expert panel OH Health. Also, as part of the guidelines, we considered having a digital version. The digital version should maintain the same characteristics. So remain true to the physical or hard copy version to facilitate data analysis and to ensure confidentiality of the data between applicants and evaluators. We worked with electronic forms in the tool, but as you will see in the next presentation, and considering that ICA now has a platform to incorporate other tools digitally, the idea will now be to take the physical work included into the PVS ICA digital tool. We've talked a lot about the guidelines for work, and now as for the finished product features, first of all, we consider, and we had said that the work was to first analyze existing PVS tools, but with different levels of priority. After studying the scope of each of these, we decided to base the work on the animal health PVS plus the application manual for the PVSs. Secondly, the food safety PVS, and third, those for plant health and emergency response. We maintained the overall structure and the functioning logic of the tools. So for fundamental components and the critical competencies, the pre-existing ones in each of these tools. By studying each separately, we verified that these could remain standardized. Sometimes there were differences in order or sequence of the technical components, but overall that was the structure: four fundamental components and their critical competencies. And then maybe 5 to 7 critical competencies under each. And we maintained that same structure. What is new for this tool is that the evaluation of each critical competence is the sum of the performance in the specific activity that is being assessed, plus some points related to the performance in coordination and interagency integration. So when assessing harmonization or standardization under that evaluation in all the other PVSs, and you have to add to it how coordination and integration is done among different agencies under that same area. So adding both evaluations, you determine the performance for each of the critical competencies. More on product characteristics, we also found a need to complement certain specific points. In terms of sanitary issues and food safety, there was a need to add some sub-competencies such as rabies in herbivores, zoonotic influenza, brucellosis, TB, and bovine spongiform encephalopathy. As for the interface between plant protection and the environment, there was also a need to add sub-components related to pesticides, chemical fertilizers, and related environmental pollution.
Los próximos pasos de este
Next
trabajo
steps for the work.
serán la revisión y
First, to
validación final de
review
este
and
grupo de
have the
trabajo,
final
que fue
validation
realizado
by the working
concluyendo la
group.
revisión 1
We've
en
already
estas
done the
próximas
first
semanas y que el
review,
mismo
so over the
grupo
coming weeks,
que
the
trabajó desde el
working
inicio
group that
realizará
began
la
from the
revisión
beginning,
final y la validación del trabajo.
sorry about the
Después
redundancy, and they
de
will
hacer la
begin
validación,
looking at their
se
internal review
subirlo
to
a la
later
plataforma de
adjust the
verificar,
product
es
and
decir,
upload
subir
it to
este
the
trabajo,
digital
incorporárselo
platform,
a la plataforma de
adding it
verificar.
to
Y
the
por
digital
último,
PVS tool.
una vez
And
realizado
lastly,
esto,
once this has
estaría
finished,
entonces
it will
finalmente
be
disponible a testeo
readily
y
available for
utilización por
testing
los
and
partes externos.
use by
Por tanto,
external
quedo a
partners.
disposición para consultas,
So that is it on my
aclaramientos,
part, and I'm
comentarios
available
y
for
preguntas.
questions. Thank you again for the
Perfecto, bueno,
opportunity.
muchísimas gracias por
Thank
la
you very
intervención.
much, Horace, for
Ahora,
your
como hemos hablado en
participation.
varias ocasiones,
As we've
la
mentioned on
utilización
several
de esta
occasions,
herramienta
the
puede ayudar
use of this
mucho
tool
a lo que
can
sería
add
la
to
financiación del proyecto con
or
recursos
help in
externos, ¿no?
finding
Y acá a
funding
nuestra especialista le
in
doy la más
external resources. And now we
Maritza
have our
Cordero, les va a
specialist
hablar
of the
sobre la
HFS
experiencia que
program, Ana
está
Marisa
teniendo
Cordero, who
dentro
will
de este
share
tema.
the experience
Entonces
she
le dejo
has
la
had in
palabra a
that
Marisa.
sense. Ana Marisa, you have the floor.
Hola, hola.
Hi,
Muchas
everyone.
gracias, José. Y un
Thank
saludo
you,
especial
and
para quienes
greetings
nos
to
acompañan
all of
el
those
día de
joining
hoy.
us today.
A mí me corresponde, como
I will
mencionó
now
José, hablar con ustedes un
talk
poco y compartir
about
un poco las experiencias
the
en cuanto a la
experiences we've
identificación de
had in terms
prioridades
of
a partir del uso del
identifying
PVS.
priorities based on the use of the PVS tool.
La primera nada más. Eso, eso. Gracias. Hemos mencionado,
Thank
y
you. So
bueno, se
we've
mencionó desde el
mentioned
inicio a partir de la presentación
today
de
from the
Jaime
very
Flores,
beginning, starting with Jaime
un poco
Flores,
que el DBE
how
es una
this
herramienta de
PVS
carácter
tool is
flexible,
flexible,
fácil de
that it
utilizar
is easy to
y que
use,
tiene una serie de objetivos
and it
específicos
has a
orientados
series
al
of specific
fortalecimiento de los servicios de
objectives
sanidad,
geared at
veterinaria e inocuidad de
strengthening
alimentos.
animal health and
Y
food
que
safety systems.
uno de sus elementos más
One of the
importantes
most
es
important
el
elements of the tool
establecimiento de una
is
visión común a
to
partir
establish a
de
common
la
vision
discusión y el
based
diálogo
on dialogue
que
and
se genera
discussion
producto de los resultados de la aplicación
after
del
the
proceso.
results
Y
of
ese
applying the
diálogo se
process. And so
genera
this
a nivel
dialogue
interno
is
de los representantes
held
técnicos del servicio
internally with the
oficial,
different
pero
technical
también,
representatives of
como
official
fue
services,
mencionado por
but also,
los colegas que presentaron,
as our colleagues
a
have also
partir
mentioned,
del diálogo con las
based
diferentes partes
on a
interesadas, el
dialogue
sector
with different
privado,
stakeholders, such as the private
la academia,
sector,
otros
academia,
organizaciones con competencia en el tema,
other
los
organizations that have
consumidores.
competencies in the matter,
Y tal vez acá nada
and
más compartir que
consumer.
a partir de los
So to
resultados
share
podemos hablar primero
some of
de
the
que a
results, we
nivel
can
interno el sector
say that internally,
oficial puede utilizar esta
the
herramienta
official
como una
services can use the
herramienta de
tool
gestión para
as a
comparar
management
el
tool
desempeño a lo largo
to
de los
compare
años.
their performance
Entonces,
over
en
the
algunos
years.
países hemos topado
In
con
some
la
countries,
experiencia de que hay
we've
servicios oficiales que la
already
utilizan para
had the
comparar
case of official services
cuáles
using the tool
fueron
to
mis
compare
elementos prioritarios de acuerdo a cada una de las
the
competencias críticas en
priority
los que quiero
elements under
trabajar
each of the
y en
critical
un año, dos
competencies,
años, identificar
and
cómo se ha mejorado el
1 or 2 years
servicio,
later to see
cómo a
how
partir
that
de
process
esos
had actually
resultados
been
identifico
improved. So
prioridades
based on the
que me
results,
permiten
they identify
desarrollar
priorities
un proceso de
to
planificación
develop
estratégica
a
donde puedo
strategic planning
medir el
process
nivel de
and then
desempeño a lo
measure
largo de los años
the
y
performance
promover
over the
una mejora
years
continua. ¿Por qué?
as
Porque
to
el DBE no
promote
es nada
continuous
más un
improvement,
proceso de
because
aplicación,
PBS is not
es
just a
un proceso
process
de
of
mejora
applying the
continua.
tool, it really seeks
Y
to
tal vez acá quiero
add
compartir con
continuous
ustedes
improvement.
también algunas experiencias que hemos
And
tenido a
some
partir de
experiences we've
los
had,
resultados y del uso de la
again, based
herramienta en
on the
algunos
use of the
proyectos
tool and
con
the
recursos
results with external resources that we've been implementing in our program. First, a process executed a long time ago, but which can be interesting to consider, which is a project funded by the STDF, the Fund for Trade Facilitation Rules, and the tool on performance, vision, and strategy for sanitary and phytosanitary measures was applied in different countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. And based on that application, it led to specific action plans in the different countries to fund activities related to capacity building and under the phytosanitary measures, and also to understand the regional behavior, if you will, and what specific areas or technical topics could need support by ICA or locally or regionally. Another experience that is more in the midterm but is still ongoing is a process that has been implemented with the Inter-American Development Bank, where countries where they've identified or in the countries that have been prioritized to intervene and finance actions related to sanitary and phytosanitary measures or AHFS through our representatives in the ICA in the different countries. The IDB representatives make contact with the goal of applying the PVS before starting the projects. And this is to ensure they have a baseline so that by the end they can also apply it and thus establish a comparison and identify how things have improved based on identifying those processes.
Es muy nueva, pero que estamos trabajando en la región Caribe.
We are working on the Caribbean region as a result of a project funded by the European Union from the Regional Food Security Program, where we are applying the strategic view, performance tool, and food safety in 6 countries with the aim to identify support areas in food safety, and from there to develop specific actions and capacity building aspects. What is interesting from the process, that from the app, from the use, we have identified actions related to capacity building for the region and between and for countries in topics related to training. But from the app, we have shared this with the different counterparts, the different official counterparts. We have shared with them other topics that eventually could be improved from other projects or actions that are being implemented so far. So here, just to mention that, as it was mentioned before, the collaborative work from strategic partnerships with organizations, with the government sector, with other organizations of technical cooperation, empowers the possibility, or it has the possibility that as ICA we can continue contributing to the strengthening and improvement of the official services. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, for your presentation. And we are seeing little by little how this tool may be really useful for different aspects in the different regions. We are about the end of our presentation today, but we want our expert, Susana Miranda, to share a short video summarizing what we have been discussing today. But I believe you will like it a lot. So go ahead, Susana.
La herramienta Desempeño, Visión y Estrategia, DBE, creada en 2005 por el Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura, ICA, ha sido aplicada más de 70 veces en más de 30 países de las Américas. Tiene como objetivo apoyar el fortalecimiento de los servicios oficiales, de sanidad agropecuaria e inocuidad de alimentos, mediante la caracterización del desempeño de componentes definidos, para cada una de las herramientas. El DBE se conforma por 3 etapas fundamentales. Desempeño, aplicación del instrumento para caracterizar el nivel en que se encuentra el servicio oficial. Sesiones de visión común, presentación de resultados y discusión conjunta entre el sector público, sector privado y otras partes interesadas para construir una visión común sobre cómo mejorar. Estrategia, identificación de prioridades y acciones para mejorar el desempeño mediante un trabajo y discusión conjunta. Hoy marcamos un antes y un después. El DBE deja el papel atrás y se moderniza con la aplicación web. Esta aplicación proporciona un mayor alcance y participación, resultados inmediatos, en tiempo real, un análisis de datos ágil y eficiente, una plataforma segura para la información de los países, e integración con Power BI para un análisis y presentación de resultados de manera sencilla y visual. Además, los servicios oficiales podrán completar la herramienta desde cualquier dispositivo, celular, computadora o tablet. Pero el DBE no termina aquí. La tecnología avanza y nosotros en ICA con ella. Proyectamos para el futuro un asistente virtual, guiando al usuario en el llenado. Soporte bilingüe e interacción dinámica con IA. Conexión con recursos oficiales y manuales actuales. Con las actualizaciones de este 2025 y su digitalización, ICA reafirma su compromiso de innovación y acompañamiento a los países.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias. Y
Thank
ahora,
you so much. And now, without further ado, I would like to open the floor for comments, questions from the participants. I see some hands raised already. So we are seeing on the screen, I believe we are on the screen, Diego Quiroga from Senasa. He would like to ask if the capacity of the NPPOs to cooperate with other NPPOs to actively participate in regional and international environment is considered a quality and evaluation for PVS. So I'll give the floor to Rodrigo Astete, our expert, to answer this question. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Diego, for your question. Yes, within the characterizations and the scope of our level, within this characterization of many points is related to the interaction with other organizations and the existing cooperation with other organizations. So it is considered within the characterization, considering the highest levels, of course. Thank you, Jose. Perfect. Thank you, Rodrigo. Now let's give the floor to Miguel Arbelo. Go ahead, Miguel. Floor is yours. Good morning, good afternoon. We will need to do food safety, right, Ruen? First of all, greetings to the General Director, Jaime Flores, to the colleagues and officers of our constituent countries and our AICA colleagues. Last week, I started the process here in Panama. We are very excited because it is a request made by the minister and an express need of the country. Certainly, as it was mentioned in the presentations, health, food safety, and AHFS is a public will, a public good. And definitely, the need to update and modernize our sanitary systems required somehow an adjustment of this methodology. Understanding, and this is what I would like to highlight from Panama, that certainly digital platform methodology, the use of intelligence, information systems, help and cooperate a lot, but there is a very important value in experience. As one of the experts on AI said, the experience has not been digitalized yet. So the performance of Rodrigo, Lourdes, Alejandra, Carlos, local talent, and Susana, in dialogue and in discussion with 83 officers from public sector, representing 20 institutions, and on a second session with the private sector, some 55 entities and companies tell us that this is on the right track. But I don't want to say they're using the word, so using the floor, so I'll ask Ruben to give us his reaction. Ruben Senasi, he is one of the people, the persons leading this process. Go ahead, Ruben. Thank you, Dr. Arevelo, and thanks to the panelists from AICA. The experience has been an amazing experience so far. We as Plant Health, we are very pleased to go hand in hand with AICA in this experience. Plant Health has always bet to all initiatives that involve technology, innovation. We have seen with good eyes the PVS tool. It has proven to be, to what I know, quite versatile tool that can be applied to the different national organizations of phytosanitary protection, regardless the level of development. We started the process early September with the first phase of PVS, which is planning. We organize after the request, as mentioned by Dr. Arbelo, a request of the minister to AICA's representative in Panama. So we organize a series of meetings with AICA consultants for starting September the 9th, more or less, and for October 15, 16, I mean last week, we were applying the service to the public sector, 15 in first instance and October 16 to the private sector. We had an amazing call in the public sector that encouraged us to continue on with this initiative, and with the private sector, pretty good experience, a pretty good call. And in fact, we are preparing ourselves after the service. We are getting prepared for November 21st in Panama City, face-to-face meeting for this common vision. Plant Health, the National Directorate of Plant Health, needs this exercise. It needs this exercise. We were born, we were created because of a law dating from 1996, so 29 years of existence. Someone mentioned, and I believe it was Dr. Jaime Flores, mentioned those organizations where the legal structure was a little bit outdated. That was our case. So we needed this characterization, we needed this self-assessment with the participation of public and private sectors. So we hope that we will have a good end with the vision and the creation of the joint vision on November 21st, as I mentioned. So in 1 month, we should be on that exercise, on this exercise. I believe that so far, there is no question that our participation has been fruitful, successful so far, and we hope we will continue in this line hand in hand with AICA. If there are questions, so I also want to thank AICA's consultants, Rodrigo, Lourdes, Alejandra Diaz, Carlos Barcena, the engineer, because they have guided us in this process so far. So I want to reiterate, if there is any question or any NPPO, we are willing to practice this international, this horizontal cooperation between authorities that has been quite effective. So I'm going to stop here. Any question, we are at your service. Thank you so much. We really thank you this feedback and this witness about what we have presented today. And that is in practice and successful. Thank you, Panama, for your intervention. Thank you, Miguel, as well. I want to give the floor to Diego Montenegro. Diego, go ahead, floor is yours. Thank you, Jose, and thanks everyone in this working team that has been working in updating this amazing tool. I would like to highlight that I met her being outside AICA as a public officer, and then in AICA as a representative of one of the countries, particularly in Venezuela. We broadly apply it precisely with Jaime Flores when he was the regional expert with headquarters in Caracas. I have the best concept of the usefulness of this tool as an integrated instrument that led us to simultaneously evaluate technical factors, economic factors, social factors, institutional factors, environmental factors at different scales. That is why I'm so happy to learn that this tool is being updated nowadays, and that is going to be used using the new technologies that exist nowadays. I also want to say that currently in Mexico, in Senacica, the National Service of Animal and Plant Health and Food Safety, we are precisely working on an integration process of the systems of information Senacica has. They are not integrated between themselves, and that could perfectly use the PVS instrument to strengthen what we are doing so far in Mexico. So Alejandra, Jose, and colleagues, Ana Marisa, thank you for this tool. I'm sure that very soon we will calling you and experts working in the topic through our health area to continue with the specific needs identification aspect and training support and even investment for capacity building in Senacica, our most important institutional partner at the level of the hemisphere and AICA Mexico. So congratulations and go ahead. Great work, good news. I was surprised to see that the new generations of AHFS didn't know appropriately and deeply this PVS, and this is being corrected, and we are re-including it as a very important tool for diagnosis, view, and strategic planning for AICA. Thank you so much. Thank you, Diego. Now I'm gonna give the floor to Federico. Yes, Federico, go ahead, floor
Bueno,
is
muchas
yours.
gracias,
Hello,
José,
hello,
Rosalia,
thank you, Jose, AHF's
representaciones,
team,
equipos aquí presentes.
delegations,
Por un lado,
and people present
quería
here.
empezar
I
felicitarlos
didn't
por
want
esta
to
actualización profunda
avoid
y
this
alto
opportunity
impacto
to
del DBE y que
greet
es una
you
herramienta ser
because of
exitosa.
this
He sido
successful
testigo
tool. I have
de la
witnessed
implementación de la
the
aplicación
implementation and the
del DBE en
application of
Argentina,
the
por
PVS in
ejemplo,
Argentina,
a
for
través de
example,
Tomás, de
through
la propia
Tomás,
Lourdes,
Lourdes
y creo
herself. And I
que hoy por
believe
hoy tenemos un
that
caso
nowadays
de un instrumento que ha sido
we
sumamente
have a
exitoso
case of a
y que hoy
tool
se ve
that has been quite
enriquecido
successful
significativamente
and that is
por
significantly
la
strengthened
modernización que implica
with
nuestro
the
aprovechamiento de
modernization
inteligencia
implied by the
artificial
use
y
of
otras
AI
tecnologías
and
digitales
other digital
y
technologies,
también
and
incorporar,
also
digamos, enfoques que
to
le dan incluso
include the
mayor
approaches
integralidad y
that give more
complementaridad, ¿no?
integrality with
Yo
One Health.
quería en particular,
I
ya estoy
particularly
pensando
wanted, I'm
en su
thinking
potencial
in
aplicación
the
y
potential
quería,
application, and
veo dos ámbitos
I see two
con
scopes
mucho gusto podría colaborar
where
en
I
el
could
caso de
cooperate with
Bolivia
pleasure.
tenemos un
In the case of
contexto
Bolivia,
ideal
we have an ideal
para una
context
aplicación, para
for an
realizar un
application
piloto
to develop a
de esta
pilot
misma
of this
filosofía. Como saben,
strengthened tool. As
la
you
semana pasada
know,
hubo elecciones,
last Sunday we had elections,
las
presidential
próximas
elections.
autoridades están asumiendo en
Next
menos de tres
authorities
semanas. Nosotros
will
hemos
assume in less than
preparado,
3 weeks. We
digamos,
are
delineando
preparing, we are
nuestra agenda de
outlining
cooperación técnica, al menos
our
desde el
technical
lado de la
cooperation
oferta.
agenda, at
Y en
least
esta
from the
agenda de
side of the
cooperación
offer.
técnica,
So
la
in
agenda
this
de
agenda,
los componentes de planificación
the components
estratégica
of
y
strategic planning
fortalecimiento
and
institucional van a
institutional
ser
strengthening
fundamentales, ¿no?
will
Esto se
be
trata de una
vital.
oportunidad muy
So
potente,
this is a
sobre
powerful
todo
opportunity,
ante la
particularly
posibilidad de generar
the
un impacto
possibility,
significativo
in
dada la
line of the possibility
relevancia
to
del
generate a
contexto actual en
significant impact
Bolivia.
because of the
Como
pertinence of the
saben, Bolivia está
current
atravesando una
context in
crisis
Bolivia. As you know, Bolivia is
macroeconómica
going
severa.
through a
No hay
severe
dólares
macroeconomic
y
crisis,
en ese
and there are
contexto la
no dollars.
actividad
And in this
agropecuaria
context,
se
the
se está
agricultural
convirtiendo en la
activity
principal
is
actividad
becoming
económica.
the
Y ante
main
esta
economic
crisis
activity in
macroeconómica de falta
line
de
with this
divisas
macroeconomic
por la caída
crisis
de
and
los
lack of
mercados
US
cambiarios
dollars,
mundiales.
the
Es la
market
actividad
opening becomes
que puede
essential.
dar respuestas
This
más
is the
rápidas a los
activity that can
desafíos
give a
está
faster
atravesando
response to the
Bolivia
challenges Bolivia is
actualmente, ¿no?
experiencing
Por eso,
so far.
al mismo tiempo tenemos una
So
excelente
at the same
relación
time, we
con
have an excellent
con
relation
AFIS, con la Embajada de
with
Estados Unidos, que
AFIS,
está
with the
también
American
desarrollando la
Embassy.
relación
This
con Estados
scenario
Unidos a
and
partir de
the
este nuevo
relationship with
gobierno.
the United
Creo
States
que también
is
las
changing from
condiciones,
the
también con
next
la Cámara Nacional de
administration.
Cooperación, hay una
So
relación
uh,
histórica con el SENASA.
there we have a
Muchas
historic
gracias a
relation
todos los
with SENASA.
instrumentos,
So thanks to
iniciativas
the
y
tools,
proyectos que logramos
initiatives, and
traer,
projects
siempre
of
vamos
AHF's
alimentando
program, we are
la
always
agenda
feeding
con
the
excelentes resultados. De
agenda
hecho,
with the SENASA
por
thanks
un
to
lado
this.
les
So
quería
on one
proponer
hand,
que lo
I would like to
estudiemos,
propose that to
que tengamos
study
alguna
this,
reunión
to
específica
have some a specific
para ver
meeting
si sería factible,
to see if it
digamos,
is
ofrecer
feasible
esto
to offer
como una
this
herramienta potente de entrada
as a
a las
powerful
próximas
tool
autoridades. Y por
for
el
the
otro lado,
new authorities. And
hago
on
como
the other
vocero
hand,
de coordinador
I'm
regional
wearing
en
the
el
hat
ámbito
of
de
the
la
regional coordinator
Secretaría
in the
General
scope of
Andina
the
de la Agencia
Andean
Agropecuaria Andina. Como
General
saben,
Secretary.
SAIA
As
es
you
uno de
know,
los tres ejes
AHFS is one of the three
fundamentales de esta
lines of
agenda
actions that are
agropecuaria
vital in
y
the
creo que
agricultural
valdría la pena
agenda.
también
I
en
believe it will be
articulación con Jaime en
worthy
el marco de las
in
actividades que
articulation
Jaime
with
Romero
Heine
a lo
under the
largo
framework Jaime
de su estada
Romero
como la casa, creo que
activities
valdría la pena también
is doing.
presentar
So it will be
la
worthy
herramienta
to present the
a la
tool
Secretaría General de la
to
CAN, a la
the
Secretaría de
General
Desarrollo
Secretary of
Tecnológico
ACAN, the Secretary of the
Agropecuario Andino
Technical Committee,
a los monitorados
Technical
y entidades
Agricultural
de
Committee,
trabajo regionales
Indian
alrededor de
Committee.
su aplicación. Eso, muchas gracias.
This is it. Thank you.
Excelente, Federico, y cuenta con
Excellent,
eso, porque
Federico. You
precisamente
can
este
count on
tema de
this
hoy es
because
para eso, para
today's
buscar
topic
esas
is
oportunidades de
precisely to
explorar
that,
y puede contar
to
con el equipo
explore
SAIA
this,
a
and you can
continuar
count with
y ya
the
vemos,
EHFS
vemos
team.
que esta es la
So
intención
let's
de a ver
talk
cómo
together
continuamos
to
el
see how we
próximo
can
año,
continue
¿no? Si
next
podemos
year
ayudar. Así
and we
que
can help.
te agradezco mucho
Thank
tus
you
comentarios.
for your
Ya
comments.
creo que con esto
I
hemos
believe with
llegado
this we
a
have
la finalización. No
reached the
veo más
end.
manos
I do not
levantadas
see any
en
other
estos
hand
momentos.
raised
Federico,
right now,
adelante.
right?
Aquellas preguntas que no pudimos contestar,
The question that those questions that we did not answer will be answered by email or with any other communication means to give you more details. So with this, if there are no other intervention, we can conclude this launch workshop with the hope that we will continue, as we said at the beginning, using this tool as a modern, updated, integrated tool to continue and helping the AICA country members and in the Americas to continue improving and working in your areas with the goal all of us have. So healthier animals, safer food, and marketing. An important part of the trade that is so important for our country. So here, I believe we can help a lot the countries in the Americas.
Tenemos una mano levantada, es que no la veo
We
acá,
have
pero,
a hand raised. I cannot
Moreno.
see from here, but go ahead, Carla Moreno. Floor is yours.
Hola, hola con todo.
Hello, hello,
Qué
everyone. Good
gusto.
morning.
No
It
puedo
is a
prender la
pleasure.
cámara.
I cannot turn on my
Estamos
video,
acá con
but
el equipo de
we are here
agrocalidad en
with the
Ecuador. Me
Agrocalidad
presento,
team in
Carla Moreno,
Ecuador.
estoy a
I
cargo de
am
la
Carla
Dirección de
Moreno.
Seguridad de
I am
Alimentos.
responsible
Tenemos
of
la
the
manito levantada
Food
las camaritas.
Safety
Justamente
Directorate.
hemos escuchado muy
We have
atentamente
heard
la presentación y
with
todo el
care
gran
these
trabajo que se ha hecho.
presentations and the
Y al
important job
mencionar el equipo de trabajo que se
conducted.
hizo aquí también
This
en
work
Guanajuato, en
was
Ecuador.
a
Entonces,
part of this work
lo que
was
queríamos
conducted
nada
here in
más es
Ecuador. So
felicitar.
we
Estuvimos
just
en
want
varios
to
puestos y
congratulate.
les
We were
formó
very
parte de este
pleased to be
trabajo
part of this
conjunto que creo que así
joint
se
work.
tienen que
I
hacer las
believe
cosas
this is
como
how things
país.
should be done
Fue un
as
gran
a country. It was great.
Si nos dan un momentito, estamos tratando de
Just hold on.
unirla como panelista. Carla,
We'll try to join
perfecto,
her as a
gracias, disculpa.
panelist. Perfect,
Adelante.
Carla. Go ahead, floor is
Estás
yours.
en mute todavía.
You're still muted.
Ahí, listo.
Good.
Sí, qué chévere. No, muchísimas gracias a todos
Nice.
los que estuvimos
Thanks,
aquí en
everyone.
Ecuador, a los compañeros del ICA, a los
Thanks to
compañeros
AICA's
de
colleagues
Pajo. Fue
and
muy bonito
colleagues from Pajo.
trabajar
It
con
was
ustedes. Gracias
very
también por darnos la oportunidad
nice to work with
como
you. Thanks
país.
for
Fue un
giving us the
trabajo muy
opportunity
técnico
as a
en nivel
country. It
tanto
was a
del sector
technical work at
público al
the
que
level of public
representamos como del
sector we
sector privado.
represent
Les
as well as to
continuamos a
the
agradecer y
private sector.
felicitar la
So
iniciativa.
we want to
Con
thank and
muy buenos
congratulate for
votos
the
también
initiative. We
tenemos
see with good
plano
eyes
para aplicarlo
because
ya en
we,
estos
we have plans
años
to apply it in
y
the coming years,
fortalecer el
and
tema de
this will
desarrollo de la
strengthen
seguridad de
the
alimentos.
development
Este
of
gran
food
saludo.
safety.
Romer no pudo estar
So greetings.
el día de hoy acá,
Romer was not
a
able to
pesar de
hear
vacaciones, pero
because
también
he's in
está atento de
vacations,
la
but he is also
reunión.
paying
Aquí
attention to the
recibimos su
meeting,
mensaje y por supuesto
and
de
I
agradecerle
will translate his
este
message.
apoyo que
And
damos
thank you.
desde
So this
Muchas
is what we
gracias.
want to say to you.
Muchísimas
Thank you
gracias,
so much.
Carla.
Thank you,
Encantado en conocerle de
Carla.
igual
Nice
manera.
to meet you, to meet
Entiendo que
you.
tenemos dos
I
manos levantadas
understand we have two
adicionales
hands raised.
para darle la oportunidad antes de cerrar el día de hoy.
So we're gonna
Si me
give you
dan
the
un
floor.
momentito, estoy
So
tratando de
just hold
ver.
on because I'm trying to see
Bueno, ahora tengo
the
una mano
names. Now I have
levantada,
one hand raised.
Melina Adames
Melina Adames
Salcie.
Salcie.
No tiene micrófono. Bueno.
She
Entiendo que
doesn't
no
have a
tiene entonces
microphone.
micrófono
So I
en estos
understand she
momentos,
does
así
not have a
que
microphone right now.
por favor, si es posible,
So
Melina,
if it is
lo puedes
possible, Melina,
escribir en el chat
you can
o
type your
mandarnos un
question in
correo
the chat box,
electrónico.
or you can send us an
Sería
email.
genial.
That will
Bueno,
be
pues ya
great.
con esto,
Okay, so with
muchísimas gracias
this,
a todos.
thank you so much, everyone.
¿Me escuchan ahora?
Can you hear me
Sí,
now?
te escuchamos.
Buen día.
Yes, good
Disculpe,
morning. My
Melina
apologies. I
Salce,
am Melina Adame, Adame
Procuradora
Salce
Alimentaria
from a Food
de
Safety
Agricultura. Es
Department of the
para
Ministry of
solicitarle
Agriculture. This
que
is
por
to
favor me
ask you
envíen dicho
to send
material
me
de la
the
presentación de
material, today's
con
presentation,
fines de compartirlo con mis
in order to
compañeros
share
aquí
this
para
with my
promover la
colleagues here to
información.
promote this information.
Le he escrito el correo en el
I put my
Perfecto.
email in
¿Me
the chat
escucha?
box.
Sí,
Can
sí,
you
la
hear me?
escuchamos.
Yes, we can. No problem.
Sí, le he dejado mi correo en el chat.
So I put my email in the
Perfecto, así lo
chat box.
haremos.
Perfect. We
Entonces
will
ya,
do
ya
that.
enviamos el material que se
So we
presentó.
will send the material presented today.
Muchas gracias.
Sí,
Thank you.
muchas gracias a ustedes. Que
Thanks to
tengan un
you.
buen día.
Have a nice rest of the day.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Bueno,
Thank you.
muchísimas gracias a
Okay.
todos. Y
Thanks,
con esto pues
everyone. And with
terminamos.
this,
Y
we
que esto sea
conclude.
no solamente
And
el final, sino al
we want this
principio
not the
de
end,
mucho
but
trabajo, ¿no?
the
Que
beginning
estamos,
of a lot
que
of work.
entendemos que podemos
We
realizar
understand we
junto
can
trabajando las
organize
herramientas.
along with these new
Gracias y que
tools.
tengan buen día
Thank
todos.
you. Have a nice rest of the
Chao,
day.
chao.
Bye bye.
Gracias.
Gracias, un abrazo,
Thank
un
you.
abrazo para
Bye
todos.
bye.